Hello friends, good morning. Welcome to ASTRA. This is Dhanunjay, bringing you the daily current affairs from the Hindu exclusively for UPSC prelims as well as mains. So, what are the things that you have in today's Hindu? That is 3rd of March 2023. This is the front page that I have edited for your quick understanding. So, what are the things that we have? Let's quickly discuss with that. First thing is, the state of Andhra Pradesh is inviting Global Investor Summit from March 3rd, that is from today and tomorrow. So this is the summit which is going on in Andhra Pradesh. For Andhra Pradesh students who are preparing for Group 1, this can be a very good thing, or for preparing for your mains, because many of our students are writing Group 1 mains. So please go through this advertisement. So coming into the front page, very good news coming for BJP. Yesterday, the three assembly seats, the three assembly elections of the three states, Nagaland, Tripura, and Meghalaya were counted, and BJP and its allies have come to power, whereas Meghalaya has thrown a hung verdict. Right? So this is the thing. This shows that BJP is reaching the new frontiers, the frontiers where it has not touched so far. One more good news coming from Nagaland is Nagaland has elected for the first time 2 women MLAs in Nagaland history. So these are the things that you have, one for BJP and one for the women representation in the Nagaland sections, or in the women representation in the Northeast. So 2 things that you can remember. Second one is panel of Prime Minister, CJ and opposition leaders to pick Chief Election Commissioner, says the court. Now this is about who has to pick up the Chief Election Commissioner. Recently we all know that yesterday the Supreme Court of India has discussed who has to be the members in choosing Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioner. We know that President appoints them. Now, whenever President appoints them, it is on the aid and advice of Council of Ministers as per Article 74 and 75 of Indian Constitution. So now what Supreme Court said clearly is there has to be a panel. It should not be just left with the Council of Ministers, because it is excessive executive interference into an autonomous body like Election Commission. So it has said that there should be a panel consisting of Prime Minister, Chief Justice of India and opposition leader to pick Election Commission of India and other election commissioners. So this is a good thing that is coming from the so-called the Supreme Court. So this is something which is very important, guys. So Election Commission of India might be a probable question this year in the prelims. So this is for PSAR students and this is for general students. Next, let's go for quickly. In the local pages, you do not have much, but one thing is between the state governor versus state chief minister. So we have been seeing that there are some problems in the federal relations in the country, particularly with the role of the governor. It started in Tamil Nadu. We have seen the same incidents in Kerala. The same thing was happening in the so-called Maharashtra. Now it is coming again back to Telangana, saying that the state of Telangana has moved to Supreme Court because the governor of the state is not clearing the bills. As per Article 200 of the Indian Constitution, it requires the governor to give their assent or to reject the bill or to return the bill for reconsideration, or she can reserve the bill for the president's address or for president's consideration. But she has to take an action, but Article 200 is saying she has to take the action. But governor is not taking any action in this. As a result, the state of Telangana has approached Supreme Court. This is the thing. And Article 163 says that the power exercised by the governor should be in the aid and advice of Council of Ministers headed by the Chief Minister, just like your Article 74 at the center. So these 2 articles are important. Article 163, Article 200 of Indian Constitution, both are important. Now this is also important because of the federal relations between center and the states. Next one is coming directly from the so-called, a very good article was written again by Stan Johnny. Now this Stan Johnny is giving very good articles, substantiative articles in the Hindu. So whenever you are finding this man's articles, better to go through it, because he carries something called some good insights into the international relations of the country. So now it is coming from positioning India's stand on Ukraine war. How can you see India's position on Russia-Ukraine war? So he started telling what are the views of the West on this war, what are the views of the global South, particularly India, South Africa, Brazil in this context. So this is first consideration that he has said. Now the second consideration is how far the wars, how far India's position is correct in the particular domain. So this is the article that he has written. So let me start here. So recently, after 1 year of the war between Ukraine and Russia, United Nations General Assembly has went for resolutions. That is, they have adopted a resolution to condemn Russia's attack on Ukraine. However, 141 members voted against Russia, 32 members abstained from Russia, 7 members voted in favor of Russia. So 32 members abstained from voting. They neither supported Ukraine, neither supported Russia. So in this 32, China, India, Iran, Brazil are the members. Now, how these countries see the war, whether they are following the line of the West countries like USA and European countries, or how are their considerations. So the first consideration is, why is India's position totally different on this war? That is the question that we should know. Why? So the answer is how we see the war, how India sees the war. So how we see the war? First, let's try to discuss this from USA's concept. USA sees the war as a war on democracy. So Russia's invasion is for the ages, and Russia is trying to collapse democracy of the world. This is USA's argument. European countries argue that it is an affront to global democracy. Again, European countries as well as USA are saying that it is an affront to global democracy, and Russia is trying to put an end to international global order, rules-based order. So that is what they are telling. So now the exact question is whether it is autocracy versus democracy, as said by USA versus European Union. So these countries are saying that this war is about democracy versus authoritarianism. Now, how do really the emerging countries or the global south countries look at this war? So we all know that USA is claiming that it is to protect the democracy, but what has happened to USA in various issues? So many of the West Asian countries or many of the so-called global south countries are asking this question, because in the global south, in Latin America, the biggest democracy is Brazil. In Africa, South Africa is the biggest democratic country. In South Asia, India is the biggest democracy in the country. So democracies are not standing with the view that it is a battle between autocracy and democracy. Now why? The reason is this. They consider this war as the war of extension of Cold War politics, but not a war of democracy. So the Western countries are trying to continue this Cold War politics, and it is an extension of Cold War politics. It has nothing to do with democracy. Why they say this is nothing to do with the democracy? Because way back in the year 2003, US has left the sovereign territorial integrity of Syria, and it has invaded Iraq in 2003. Next, they have made Libya a no-flying zone in 2011, and then they have illegally trooped their forces in Syria. Recently, Israel also annexed East Jerusalem from Palestinians. So it has also annexed Syrian Golan Heights. And the next one is US has recognized the invasion of Israel into Syrian territories and Palestinian territories. And Israel is getting billions of aid for these things from USA. And the next one is Turkey recently has illegally seized Syria, but still NATO has taken any measures, because Turkey is a NATO member, but still NATO was silent on this. So all these considerations, so if USA and the Western countries are saying that we are here to protect democracy, what did they do in Iran? What did they do in Syria? What did they do in Golan Heights? What did they do in East Jerusalem? What did they do in Afghanistan? What did they do in the so-called, why they are supporting Turkey? Why they are supporting Israel? So these are the questions that the Western countries are asking. So liberally or ideally, realistically, these countries are saying that the war between Ukraine and Russia is not democracy versus authoritarianism. It is something, the power clash between the West versus Russia. So this is the reason why we are abstaining from voting. So we look at the war in a different perspective, whereas the USA and the West look at the war at a different perspective. This is the reason why major democracies like Brazil, South Africa and India abstained from voting in the United Nations General Assembly. Now, so what did this message pass? This message is clearly saying that when USA and West are coming each other together, so whenever there is a doubt about morality versus national security, the West has always taken a stand on national interests. They never cared about morality. Now, they are asking that is it sense for India to go against the moral values to compromise on their national interest? So obviously the author is telling that yes, it is very, very important to have national interest in the international relations, because Machiavelli clearly said when it comes to the international relations, the countries has to focus on their national interest first. Morality doesn't work. But India has not totally abstained from morality also. We have been not aiding the war with Russia and Ukraine. We are not supporting Russia. But what we are doing is we are having diplomatic relations with Russia, and we are just continuing it on national interest, but we are not supporting any war just like USA has done in Israel. Now, why India is not taking any stand against Russia? So this is one important domain. The second domain is India and Russia have been in close relationship, not today, for the past 75 years. We all know that Russia has been India's friend, a all-weather friend right from 1947. This is one thing. And recently, we have certain interactions with Russia in various domains. First one is we are oil importing country, that is energy importing country. So Russia is one of the largest supplier of oils to India, because 1/5 of ours is being the fifth largest economy, but 80% of oil resources of India are dependent on the foreign countries. So now Russia is giving at a cheap price, so it is better to, in the national interest, we are buying cheap oil. That is the first thing. The second thing is India and Russia has good defense relationships, right? 46% of India's defense needs in the last 5 years are met by Russia. Again, 80% of oil reserves, 46% of defense reserves are being met by Russia. So this is an ill advice if we take a stand against Russia, given this collaboration. The third one is China is being an aggressor here. Russia and China is having good relations. Tomorrow, if China is going to engage a war with India, definitely Russia will act as a mediator between us. So why to lose that interest of Russia when it comes to India, Russia and China relations? So Russia can act as breakwaters for China and China's ingression into India. That is what the third thing that we have. So we should engage and get advantage on this leverage. The next most important thing is India sees Russia as a key role in India's continental foreign policy. What is this India's continental foreign policy? If you look at the continent, the global order has been shifting from the so-called Atlantic to the Pacific. And then today it is the game of China, India and the Pacific Ocean countries, particularly dominated by China and India and Russia. In this scenario, USA is present far away. It cannot be reflecting, or it will not be worried about what is happening in this continent of Asia. So the next battleground may be Asia. Hence, we have to look at key partners in Asia. And one of the most powerful partner in Asia is Russia for us. So we look at that as a continental player in India's context. So given this security equilibrium of great powers, what India has done is a very clear understanding, or India has taken its stance. So what India is doing, it is not saying that whether Ukraine is wrong, Russia is wrong. We do not call for the names, and we are condemning the war itself, and we have condemned the war. However, India is maintaining its pragmatic neutrality, rooted in realism, continue to push for practical solutions in Ukraine. So we are not silent at the same time. Very good article. If you are unable to read the entire article, please download this PDF copy that I have given the link in the description box below your YouTube channel. So one best article for political science students and international relations students, a very pragmatic article was written. Seeping saffron, this is about the election results. Not that important for us. Data dissonance, policymakers must buttress domestic demand to drive growth. What is the meaning of buttress? Support. Right. Policymakers must support domestic demand to drive growth. Now this is in context of recent National Statistical Organization survey, the data on GDP, Q3 of GDP, and it said that in the Q2 we are growing at 6.3%, but we have fallen to 4.4%. In this context, it was written. So not that important, again, leave it. South Asia's human capital is the resilience it needs. Human capital is the resilience it needs. Now what does this article say? A very good article again, particularly from South Asia's context. Again, for international relations students, this is important. Now what he is speaking overall is, among all the countries in the world, South Asia is present in a very advantageous position of demographic dividend. Why? almost 50% of its population under the age of 24 come under the age of 24. So 50% of these South Asian countries population are very young, and every month 1 million young people are entering into labor force. Now this is the biggest asset that South Asian countries has. Now in order to reap this demographic dividend and to ensure that this demographic dividend is not turning out to be a demographic disaster, what are important? The important thing are, first thing is, though we have this biggest asset, but still South Asia is having some problems. What is that? It is the home for 1/3 of the globally stunted children, and by the age this child reaches 18, they are reaching only 48% of their full productive capacity, which means 52% of their strength is not there when they are entering into the labor force. Given in this context, the author is telling that we have to build on this human capital, which is the greatest strength of South Asia. Because just like the globe, South Asia is also kneeling under huge problems. What are the problems? Post-pandemic, we have seen rising inequalities in South Asian context, rising poverty levels, rising hunger indexes, poor literacy rates, poor skill ratio of the people. Given in this context, the social parameters or human parameters are coming down. Hence, it has to make so the entire globe, rising food prices is on the global problem. Hence, in order to overcome global problem and the problems that South Asia is facing, the resilience, the major thing is building on human capital. So what he is telling is build on human capital. What is human capital? This is previously a prelims question. Human capital is the capital that aids to fulfill the aspirations of humans by giving them the productive capacity. That is called human capital. It requires them to invest in education, health, skill development and employment opportunities. These four comes under human capital. So the entire article is being written on that context, and it is saying that we have to focus on these things. Status quo in the northeast, again election results of Meghalaya. In Meghalaya, we have seen that no party got the majority. The highest is 26, hence it is a hung party or hung. The result is hung 26. The majority should be 31 in all these states, because all these states have 60 assembly seats. NDPP has won in the so-called Nagaland, and then in Tripura it was BJP. So BJP, NDPP is a BJP-led coalition. Hence, in this state it is BJP. In this state it is BJP. But when it comes to the so-called Meghalaya, it is a hung assembly. We have to wait and see what it is going to form. So this is a holy celebration that is going to happen. This might be a prelims question. Now, what is this thing? People of Nandgaon and Barsana. Nandgaon and Barsana are the places associated with Lord Krishna and Radha. So they are celebrating Holi. Now, what is this? Latmar Holi. This might be a question. Latmar Holi is present or celebrated in which part? Madura. Madura. In Madura they are celebrating. Madura is a place for Lord Krishna and Radha. So Holi is about 1 week to come. In about 1 week, Holi is going to come. So the celebrations has begun a bit early. So this can be written. But for cultural aspects, this can be a question. Latmar Holi takes place where? That might be the question. Next one. Division between the West and Russia derails a joint statement at G20 summit. Now we all know that yesterday in the country there was all the G20 foreign ministers meeting was taken place. However, after the meeting there was no joint communique that has happened. Why? Again, the tussle between Russia versus Ukraine war has its reflections here. USA has taken one stand, Russia is taking another stand. As a result, a joint communique was not possible. This is the thing. One good news coming, India and China discusses LAC situation in Jaishankar meets counterpart. Now here what we have to understand is, though they are unable to come to a joint statement, one best thing that you can observe is countries who are having some problems in their borders. For example, that may be Russia, Ukraine, Russia on the west, India and China. So how to overcome the problem of war? So again, it is in the liberal international order that if you want to overcome the problems of war, there has to be a platform for sitting and discussing. Through discussions, you can overcome majority of the apprehensions that the countries have, and then they can go ahead with good relationships. So though multilateral institutions like United Nations organizations has failed to stop the war, but they have consistently provided a big platform for the nation states to come discuss and resolve their disputes through discussions and deliberations rather than going into fight. So this can be the best example. This can be the best examples for how multilateral institutions helps to reconciliate the facts between the states. So again, this is the thing. Nagaland gets its first women MLAs after 75 years, right? Hekani Jakulu and Salhautonau Cruz has become the first women MLAs from Nagaland. No need to remember the names. Just remember this: Nagaland gets its first women MLAs nearly after 75 years of its independence. Supreme Court forms expert panel to probe into Adani issue. Not important. Australia and India sign agreement on education. This is important, guys. For prelims, they might ask. So, what is this agreement called? Agreement is called as Framework Mechanism for Mutual Recognition of Qualifications. Framework Mechanism for Mutual Recognition of Qualifications. They can ask: is a joint communique or joint collaboration between which countries? USA, Australia, and India. Framework Mechanism for Mutual Recognition of Qualifications. So again, the same thing is there here. Trump can be sued for January 6, 2020 capital right. So we all know that in January 6, 2021, White House was attacked by a mob because it is said that Donald Trump has incited the violence or incited the public to do violence. So where you can write it? You can write it in ethics, you can write it in essay writing, saying that what happens when a national leader is inciting the mob. Now he is not moving out of his chair very easily. As a result, he has done these things. So maybe criminal charges might be kept against. So this can be used in ethics answer writing and essay answer writing. GDP maybe it's 7% this year. Again, he is telling after this National Statistic Office has released its report. The aftermath of Sri Lankan economic crash. So what is this? Recently we have seen that how exactly Sri Lanka was pushed into economic crisis. So let me start quickly giving the summary of this. If you want, you can download this, and I have highlighted, I have gone through it. What is the summary? The summary is simple. First thing is, Sri Lanka went into economic crisis because of its few problems. As per IMF, Sri Lanka was one of the highly corrupted country, and in order to win vote bank politics, it has given some welfare measures which are beyond its capability to get back. That is, free schemes was launched. As a result, slowly degraded into economic crisis. Now we all know that Sri Lanka is facing a shortage of money. As a result, it is asking the help of IMF. Now IMF said that you have to go ahead with the so-called some reforms in your country. Now what does that reforms include? Austerity measures. The measures calling in, like you should not give free schemes, like you have to reduce your corruption, like you have to reduce the wages of the employees. So all these are the austerity measures that it has. Now on one side, IMF is not bailing out very easily because it has been expecting, Sri Lanka expected that the bailout might come out in the December itself, but it is March. Still now bailout has not come. This is the first problem that IMF is showing on Sri Lanka. On the other hand, there is some political turmoil in Sri Lanka because local body elections were not held. President Ranil Wickremesinghe doesn't have the majority. Third problem is the workers are not interested in reducing their wages. As a result, again, workers' clashes are happening. So a host of economic problems, political problems, and the irrationality of IMF in keeping some conditional bailouts at this point of time is not liked by many of the Sri Lankan people. As a result, they are revolting against it. Hence, it is a set of political, economic, social, as well as international factors that has been making Sri Lankan crisis to go into much crash. So this is what we have. The next page, you do not have that. But one thing is, March 3rd is considered as World Wildlife Day, right? So this is important. United Nations observe this as World Wildlife Day. Please have a look at World Wildlife Day and what is this from. In the environment, have a look at the biodiversity and wildlife. This is the things that we have. Thanks for joining. Have a great day.